if somebody wants to study Vedas, she says, where's about on their, let's say, religious journey, would Vedas come on? Do you begin with the Vedas, like in a school, a child would start from grade 1 or kindergarten or nursery and so on, and then progress? Where do Vedas come into play? No, I don't think one should start with the Vedas. My guru, Naga Baba, his guru, which means my Param Guru, his name was Mohan Das Udasin, and he used to live in Vrindavan, and he was an extraordinary scholar of Vedas. So Naga Baba used to tell me, and I've seen that room, that ashram is still there in Vrindavan. Now, many of the Vedas are not there, the books are not there. The Vedas were a room full of just not Vedic literature, just Vedas and commentary on Vedas. So originally Vedas had 100,000 verses divided across 4 Vedas: Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvaveda. As you know, Atharvaveda got included later on. It wasn't recognized earlier on. Roughly only 5,000 verses pertain to sadhana in Vedas. Only 5,000 verses would have any esoteric meaning about how to do sadhana. And they have what we call Shad Karma. And I've talked about it earlier as well, like Vashikaran, Mohan, Sammohan, Uchatan, Vidveshan, Maran, and so on. And 15,000, those 5,000 is Gyana Kandh. Almost all of them are in Atharvaveda. 15,000 verses are what we call Gyana Kandh. Gyana Kandh is knowledge. They will talk about the universe, they will talk about creation, they will talk about apocalypse, like destruction, not in the traditional Western sense that one day all will end suddenly and you'll be judged, not from that angle, but that everything one day will finish and then will reinstate itself. And they talk about human life, they talk about other lives and so on. 80,000 verses are simply hymns, prayers in Vedas, out of which, for example, Gayatri Mantra is a prayer. But the sages, with their intense penance, turned it into a mantra which you can chant and benefit from. Sri Suktam is a prayer. But once again, sages, with their penance, turned it into a mantra. It's to say, at one time, there was just paper. But some governments came along and printed something on it that became the currency, which holds value. And then one day, one prime minister said, sorry, your currency is of no use from midnight on, and suddenly you're standing in queues. Which means one person could render that paper, which people were killing each other for a day earlier, useless. Just one announcement and it all. So similarly, sages could turn average prayers and hymns, including Rudram and so on, into powerful mantras that people could benefit from. 15,000 verses of the Vedas, or 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita. Same thing. Out of which Shri Krishna spoke around 563 or 64. Rest are spoken by either Arjuna, Sanjay, or Kapilbhai Dhritarashtra. Maybe only in the beginning. So that is the concentrated pill. Now, today, if somebody wrote a book of 1500 pages or 2000 pages, it's very unlikely that the masses will take it up. Today, people, when they start reading an article, as I was telling the other day, they scroll to the bottom first. How long is this? Then I'll decide if I want to read it or not. The span of attention is so short that it's almost non-existent. So Bhagavad Gita, as Vedvyasa, the person who was called Vedvyasa, said, Gita sugita kartavya kamanna shastra vistra. Yah swayam padmanabhasya mukpadmadi vidhi srata. That you don't really need to consult a lot of scriptures when you have Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken directly by the Lord Himself. Having said that, if as an intellectual pursuit, let's say you still want to study the Vedas, I did, so you may want to do the same. So if you want to do that, then surely you can. But to begin with the Vedas might be very boring. Because how many prayers can you read after all? And like any good book, sometimes in one chapter in the whole book, there's just one line that stays with you. And that becomes the essence of that book. Similarly, in Vedas, you may read entire cantos, many chapters, and there may just be just one line that is of use. Like, out of Gayatri Meeta, Chanda, they took Gayatri Mantra. It's not right at the beginning of the Veda. It's somewhere in the middle. 10th canto, 62nd verse. So, Rigveda. If you want to study Upanishads first. Upanishads are commentary on the Vedas done by enlightened beings, because when the kings didn't have time to go study the Vedas and so on, they would call, gurus or enlightened beings and saints and seers and say, what do you think about this? What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of that? So the essence of Vedas is found in the Upanishads. And Upanishads almost always is a dialogue between two people. To sit closely, Upanishad means you are sitting closely. You're next to knowledge. That's the meaning of the word Upanishad. So Upanishads would be a good way to start. But bear in mind, Upanishads will not evoke devotion in you. Upanishad is purely a philosophy, looking at life. Bhagavad Gita, because it covers the whole gamut of Vedic knowledge. It has devotion, it has karma, it has sankhya, it has action. Karma I've already said. Yeah, it has devotion, it has yoga, dhyan. So it says, okay, you pick and choose what appeals to you. But so start with Upanishads, and then you may want to read Puranas. Puranas are full of dumb stories. But when you will read those stories, your mind will reject. A part of you will retain something. And next time when you'll get to the Vedas, you'll be reading the hymn or eulogy or ode to some energy, you will recall that story. For example, Samudra Manthan is in the Vedas. Usually Vedas don't have stories. But somewhere, because that's from where Shri Devi came, Ma Lakshmi, Goddess Lakshmi, and that's there. Many suktams came from, all suktams have come from Vedas. So it is for somebody who has plenty of time, a great deal of willingness, some devotion, and a lot of self-discipline. And today the first challenge would be for anybody is to get the right translations. So I was telling you, Naga Baba used to say that there used to be a room full. So when he took me there, I went there, the room was no longer full. Because many people, many even these fakirs and so on would come to that ashram. The ashram was unprotected after the passing away of that guru, so they would just take books away. And more than 40% were absolutely destroyed by rats. I mean, who would care for those books? So then it started condensing and condensing and condensing. I think today, maybe in India or overseas, I mean in the US, there are many universities that have preserved their text, including actually Germany as well. You would struggle to find the whole 100,000 verses of Vedas. Today, you'll be lucky to find even 10,000. But even if there was, as I said, very few people will have that tenacity to embark on this journey. It's easily, if you wanted to study this, like Vedas and Vedic literature, even as pure study, then you would study Upanishads, you will study our Purana. There are 108 core Upanishads. So you'll study, and they're not all are big texts. Some Upanishads are only 4 pages long. Some are 20, 30, 40, 200 pages long. So Upanishads, Puranas, Samhitas, Sutras, and Shastras, which, these are all Shastras, but then you also have Nyaya Shastra and Mimamsa, which are branches of Vedic literature. They're also called Vedanga, which includes Ayurveda and astrology, which is part of Veda, a limb of Veda. And then you would pick the Vedas after going through. So if somebody really wanted to do it and they did it full time, such a person could produce such gems for this world, no doubt. You're looking at roughly anywhere between 12 to 20 years of study. 12 and 20 years of focused study of Vedic literature, if you wanted to cover. And I'm not even talking about the commentaries that many great people have done. And I'm not even talking about Tantra. If you just wanted to study Tantra, you're looking at another 3 to 4 years of studying 3 to 4 hours a day. And the thing with Vedic literature or any kind of spiritual literature, to think that I can study and make sense is the sign of sheer ignorance. You need time to meditate on it. And that's why I said roughly 4 hours a day you would study, and 3 to 4 hours a day you would spend meditating on the meaning of what you just studied. So I don't mean to discourage you, but it is my job to tell you the truth. Having said that, there's nothing stopping you from picking up a few translations of Vedas and enjoying it. By all means, feel free to do that. You can't go wrong. You will at least enjoy something, or you'll make up your mind, I don't want to do this. And that's a personal matter. That's, your individual call, how you want to take it forward. It's one of the reasons why Brahmins in the past, their egos became so huge and they started considering themselves really elite and in the elitist club, because they had this knowledge which was only passed on from family to family and on and on and on and on. Other people didn't even have access to that knowledge because they actually had spent their lifetimes studying it. Just like the art of war was in the hands of Kshatriyas, all trade and commerce in the hands of merchants, Vanijya. And that's the way things worked back then. I feel if somebody devoted their life or 20 years of their life to studying Vedas and Vedic literature, they actually would write some beautiful stuff for this world, provided they spend at least 7 to 8 years reading first. It's not that you pick up one text, you start reading and you start writing, which is what often happens these days. People will read 4 or 5 books, they'll start writing something. You don't get the depth then, or you get wrong information out there. So that's the answer to your question. Feel free to read the Vedas though.